And we're live. Hello, everyone. Tracy Noriega here, paying it forward to you on Power to the PEEPS. And PEEPS stands for Positive, Extraordinary, Everyday People Stories. And we happen to have a lovely, extraordinary person here, Miss Ann Becks. How are you doing, Ann?
I am so excited to join you here, Tracy.
I'm so excited to have you here. Anne is a fellow, well, we've been in healthcare. She's been twice as long as I have. So 30 years in the making, nurse to nurse practitioner.
Mhm.
And I guess my first question, because, I came into healthcare, it was 15 years ago, and it was not one of, it was after being a Jane of all trades, you know, uh, ace of none. And then I came into healthcare. And what I found was there's so many people who that's where they started, like straight out of high school. So for you to accumulate 30 years, how did the journey begin for you?
Yes. Well, thanks for that. I started out of high school, went from high school into nursing, and moved my way through sort of some various educational programs. And from there, went right into critical care medicine and started practicing in a big tertiary center, a big trauma center in critical care medicine, and loved every single second of it. It was just an amazing time. It was huge learning curve, soaking up everything to learn, and it really just fed my heart. It's just absolutely what I loved. And gaining sort of some momentum in that area. So after my education, just really started working in that area and working my way into increasing practice, knowledge and skills, and building a reputation of expertise in that area.
Now,
Um,
did you always know you wanted to be a nurse? Was that something like you grew up doing, or were you watching? I know I used to watch Emergency One and MASH and stuff, and would think that was kind of cool, but I didn't go straight into that. How did that happen for you?
yeah, so I would say it was something I can even look back in my books, your baby books and your kid books, and it says, what do you want to be when you grow up? I was like, a nurse and a mother. Like, so I don't know. I guess there was some little something in me that was like, no, this is what to do.
Yeah, yeah. So did you become a mother?
Yes, I have three sons that are in their 20s, and yeah, so they've flown the nest, but
Mhm.
we're still very connected. But both of those things came to be,
Mhm.
um, and I should say that probably, I mean, I don't really know, but I have to say I grew up in the Mennonite religion,
Oh,
and
is that
so
like Quaker, right? Is the same
yes,
or is it a little different? I don't want to make
well,
an
similar. I wore a head covering and a long dress, and um, we didn't have TV. We lived very simply. We didn't drive horse and buggy, but we had very plain cars. And I actually only left that religion probably about 15 years ago.
Oh,
Yeah, which was a huge life event for me, which maybe we'll touch
mhm.
on later. But
Yeah.
but all to say that I didn't vision anything. It wouldn't have been okay. It wasn't actually even too okay for me to go into nursing per se.
I was just going to ask. I mean, the fact that you did that, was that, or was it okay because you're taking care of people? Because
Well,
sometimes there's that, right?
it was probably more acceptable, but it was still pretty edgy,
Mhm.
and I wasn't really supposed to talk about it very much,
Mm.
and but it really fed my soul. I loved what I did, and yeah, some of the best learning of my life in those arenas.
Well, definitely. I mean, speaking from my personal experience of being in healthcare, I mean, one, you meet everyone of every facet of life,
Yes.
so um, just it's general public in every sense of the word,
Totally.
right? From the haves, the have-nots to everyone in between of every kind of background, especially if I don't know, did you go from clinical to hospital, or were you always in a big arena where you had lots? Like maybe that's something to speak about as well.
Yeah. So I went right into, like, from school right into a 30-bed ICU.
Oh
Uh,
wow.
yeah, med surge, trauma, neurosurgical, and cardiovascular, and rotated between them, and, chunks of time spent in each of them rotating. Yeah, so I just, like, jumped right in. It was just the most beautiful place for me. I still feel the bit of tug in that direction because it was
Yeah.
so much activity, and it was pulling on knowledge that needed
Mhm.
to be
Mhm.
happening right away, coupled with the most beautiful, heart-wrenching, heartwarming, love and grief
Right.
components at the edge of life and death, and
Yeah. Well,
people in crises, and families in crises, and just, being with and walking, journeys with people.
mhm.
I felt so privileged to be able to do that, and like you say, all walks of life.
All
It
walks of life.
doesn't matter. I have learned so much from every single person that
Mhm.
I have ever cared for,
Yeah.
and they just soaked in, and really they've brought a lot of deep compassion and a deep view of each person, no matter their origins, no matter where they are, no matter if they live on the street. I've had some of the most beautiful conversations with people who lived in a situation of homelessness.
Yeah.
Some of the most beautiful discussions. And and I am so grateful for those opportunities, and they've just given me such an appreciation for human people. I
Yeah.
that
Well, life in general, because, speaking of that, I mean, going straight into ICU, I mean, you hear some who have that, you can hear that you love that adrenaline rush, but they usually go through ER and then kind of work their way up to ICU, but you went straight there to that critical care.
yeah,
And yes, that fine line, as we who are in the hospital see all the time, how in one way human life is so fragile, right? It can sit there and what, like an air bubble, or a mixed medication, and then that's it, right?
yes,
And yet at the same time, the resiliency of the human body and what it can endure and what it can get through and heal and recover and just persist.
yes, and I
So,
would say the human spirit too, Tracy, is the part of that, right? Is that even though, I mean, people can be on their knees with grief,
mhm,
and they can't imagine how they could possibly go on.
mhm,
And yet they take one step at a time, one
yeah.
step at a time going forward. Yeah, just totally impressive, who we
Well, I
are.
think that's a beautiful way to segue into, you went from ICU to palliative care, also known as hospice or end of life, like when it's known that, hey, there's
Mhm.
that's the next step, is that next step, that next journey, so we say, the passage. How did you make that transition and decide to go into that? And, how long did you stay there and what did you find in that? Because not
Mhm.
everybody's cut out for that. Not everyone's
Yeah.
cut out
Well, I would say, first of all, that, the work that I did was really underpinned with with palliative care in some ways. Facing end of life, I mean, people who are critically ill, not knowing, with all of the things we can do, not knowing whether, I mean, ultimately, life makes the decision whether end of life is done. And I mean, I learned that time and again. We could, have powerful medications running, and airway, people on breathing machines, and we could turn everything off and the body would continue to live,
there.
right? So a very deep appreciation for life as being the factor that makes the decision. And this edge of saying, will I die or live? I don't know. Will my mother die or live? I don't know. So palliative care, end of life care, really underpinned a lot of what I was already doing. And frequently, as a nurse practitioner, in those situations, I think I was probably better prepared than many of my physician colleagues, and they would say, "Anne, can you do this part of the care?" And so I would turn towards that and provide, and I developed a lot of skill in holding grief, meeting with grieving families, talking about what would be next, um, and how to do it, and just holding space and helping people to navigate. And so it was actually through an episode of bullying within the organization that I was at. So it's called vertical bullying, but basically what it is, it sort of trickled down from the top.
Mm.
And some of that will come into play as I talk a little bit more about sort of the other part of, the me behind all of this. But that really became the catalyst for me to say, you know what? I think my time in ICU is done. And it was a really difficult decision because I just really loved it. And so it was a tough time to think about transitioning to palliative care. And palliative care, as you have so nicely said, is about end of life care. It's when somebody knows that end of life is going to come sooner than what they'd hoped. And it is really providing the care, psychosocial, spiritual, emotional, physical care to live their best life possible in that time. And sometimes it's very short, and sometimes it can be a year, year and a half, 2 years. And it's just walking with them and their family and friends along each step of that, to a place. And the other piece that I did was provide support in what we call medical assistance in dying. So in Canada now, there is a law that supports medical assistance in dying. So I was involved in meeting with people who had expressed this desire to do so, etc. So that also became part of what I was involved with. And so from this vertical bullying place where I really needed to stop and evaluate where I was, and I was asked, would you be part of our team? And then I stepped out into the community, which is a completely different place.
Yeah, than being in the hospital, yeah.
From the hospital environment to being in the community, a big learning curve again, but loved every moment. I mean, the best moments were the ones of meeting with patients and families and navigating life. I mean, many times I just took off my nurse practitioner hat and sat with them as Anne, as another human being, accompanying them and pulling in the tools that I needed, that I had at my disposal to really help them to meet end of life with the best ease that they could meet.
So I know you can definitely speak up to this. Okay. It was something I, saw constantly because I was in interventional radiology where we would put in the chemotherapy ports, put in, when, do all the aspirations and draining. And then if they were in hospice, put those last tubes in so that they could stay home and not have to keep coming in. Right. And one of the things that really got me in the world of medicine was it is known. I mean, it's a given. Everybody knows we're going to die.
Yes.
We all know that. And then there are these moments where, you're in there and it's the question of not if, but when or how long. And I just have always found it. And I want you to speak about this or, what you can with what you witnessed in ICU and in palliative. It's like this unwillingness, mostly in doctors, to speak bluntly with families to let them know, hey, yeah, you might have we want everything done possible. But there's also let's speak bluntly. Everything possible isn't going to change it.
Yes.
And it's also going maybe even more mentally, emotionally stressful for the family, for the patient, just these things that happen, So what have you seen in that? And, what I'm hearing is you're able to be that voice and to at least talk to them, because that was one of the things that just really got me upset. Is like, why don't you tell them the truth so that they can start dealing with it now?
Amen.
Right.
Absolutely. And I would say those were some of the most poignant. I mean, it gives me sort of shivers even to
Mm,
think about it, but the most poignant moments as to how I could deliver the truth
mhm,
in a container of compassion and kindness and
mhm,
support, and hold all of the acute grief that happens in that space, from the complete denial, it's not happening,
mhm.
to somebody laughing hysterically, to somebody screaming, right?
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
and grief comes in so many forms. um, and it's all okay. There's no right or wrong way to grieve, and it shows up across the
yeah.
spectrum. And so those are poignant times, and I with you and somebody who so values the truth,
Mm,
that giving the truth, and I will say there's been so many examples of times when the truth was not shared and
mhm,
the person already knew. I
yeah,
would say 99% of the time the person already knows.
mhm,
And so often I would ask people, what are you feeling? And they'll say, Anne, I'm dying.
mhm, mhm,
And they already know, but they feel so alone because
mhm,
no one wants to talk to them. So not only do physicians not want to say, and I would say they're not prepared well, they're getting better. I'll say that. But typically their motto is to sort of cure, right?
yeah,
And it's difficult to have to say, we're actually at the end of treatment here. There's nothing more that we can do that will help you to get back to where you want to be.
mhm,
The other side of this, though, Tracy, I think that's really important to me is that, as much as we know we're going to die, most of us shut that out.
mhm,
And in many ways, we spend our lives sort of running away from the fear of, I'm going to die sometime.
mhm.
We don't want to think about it. We don't talk about it. And what's the evidence for that? The evidence is how many people we care for who have never had the conversation.
Oh, yeah. Oh, there's tons.
They would never speak about it, and it could be right in front of their
Mhm.
face. And they would say, I have no idea.
Yeah.
And those are some of the most devastating times to families and to patients themselves. And part of what I'm putting out into the world is really wanting us to not be so afraid. Yes, we are going to die.
Yeah.
But what we'll talk about in just a bit, I think, is what have I learned about what has this taught me?
Mhm,
What have I learned over 30 plus years of working in medicine in these knife edge areas,
mhm.
including this area of palliative care, about what does it tell us about those of us who are here and living, knowing that we too are going to die sometime. And in fact, because life makes that decision, we don't actually know
Yeah. No. I
when.
mean, it's kind of ironic because you'll come in and somebody says that, right? And then, you're treating them for cancer or some other, chronic illness where that could go that way. I mean, that's the other thing that's everything is going to go that way. And then you'll have the next person who comes in who is totally fine and some freak accident happened, right? Or
Exactly.
they took a medicine that they didn't even know they were allergic to, and now all of this stuff happened to them. So I guess I would ask you, with you doing all this and knowing this and all this accumulation of knowledge and experience and these, I mean, things that, I mean, most people don't even have that even
For
experience. And as you said, I avoid even speaking of the inevitable, right?
absolutely.
Because that's all we do in the hospital is like prolong the inevitable, right?
Yes.
So, did you feel by doing all of this, accumulating this knowledge, working your way up, doing this, that you were living the dream life? Were you like, okay, I got a handle on this, and because I have this insight and this knowledge, like I'm living it. I'm living the dream.
Such a great question. And I have to say, even as I helped people to meet end of life, and I would say this is true for lots of healthcare professionals, there is a fear of end of life. There's
Mhm.
a fear of death. I had a fear of death. And so you could almost say some of my work was really designed to, I'll do it out here, but I'm not going to think about it. I'm not going to talk about it. And some of my own experiences personally, right? The things that was the me, the Anne behind this high functioning professional, medical professional, who loved my work, was really about um, actually. Oh, my dogs are
Oh,
talking.
I'm like, wow, you're hungry.
Was really about the fact that I was the me behind all of this was driven, running,
Mhm.
going, moving, um, trying to really keep myself busy.
Yeah,
Really,
doing, right?
yes, 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 yes.
Achieving.
Yes, exactly. And the fact that that this is what I was doing soon became apparent once at the time of this point of vertical bullying, where I literally had to take 3 months off because um, I was so distressed and down. It was a low point, really reevaluating, how the heck did I get here? Made the pivot to palliative care, and again jumped in and just loved my work. 5 years of working and doing and supporting people and developing a real expertise in it. I started to feel burnout.
Mm.
I started to arrive at this place of burnout again, of realizing, oh gosh, I know what's happening. And and so when I looked again at myself to look at, heck, what am I doing? There was so many things that landed for me. This driven me, almost running away from me, looking for ease, wanting some way to navigate life. I mean, in amongst here, there was messy relationships and a religious affiliation that resulted in excommunication from my family and social network. And so, I mean, I too, like most of us, have had lots of messy, hard things. And the thing is, as you know, this is life.
Life is messy.
This is life. And I mean, not that it's always messy.
No, but
It's life, and it shows up, and we don't make it show up, but because of our ego, personality, and nervous system responses, we start to believe that somehow there's something wrong with me.
man,
And so the deep fear that each of us has in some way that we almost live into, behind the real me, exists behind this layer of ego, personality, stories, wounds, history, traumas. This meanness, resides back here, but I wasn't in touch with that. I was sort of living, trying to seek ease and a way to navigate life. I was like, surely life has to be, I have to be able to navigate life better than this, right? I help lots of people. But my learnings from my professional world really sort of started to meld with my personal experiences. And what I know, Tracy, without a doubt, is that the people that meet end of life, whether they actually die or whether they've come so close that it's been right here,
right.
what they tell us is, my biggest regret is I didn't live this life fully.
Yeah,
And if they are fortunate to survive, those lives change.
right.
And they are so focused on, I need to live my life. And that is my passion, to say, we are here. I lived trying to sort my way through the muck of life
Mm.
to really know how to live. And even though I was so skilled in helping navigate it, I wasn't living that way myself.
Well, what I hear you saying is, well, I mean, being in the hospital and then working there with all these high powered people. As you know, you're working with all these surgeons and all these people. And even, before that, when I did corporate too, and then you're with
Right.
all these CEOs and all this other stuff. But one of the things, what I hear you saying is this, yeah, this, I am going to accomplish and fill myself up with all out there, right? And then if something should befall you and you're on your death's doorstep or sitting there wondering, waiting for a diagnosis, then all of a sudden you're wondering, why have I spent my life doing all of this? Is
Yes.
that right? And
Uh,
it's like that whole thing of, why don't we start living now until we have to wait to be told that
so
you only have 5 months or 5 years? Why don't
exactly.
we start now?
Yes, 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 yes. And as you said, it's this constant sort of running. I mean, I'm a mom. I mean, I was serving, and I would say for many of us, and I'll say women particularly, but many of us have this. We have a deep wish to serve in whatever way it is. And my serving was within the medical community, but I also wanted to serve my family. I also wanted to be who I saw myself to be, which was, and in the midst of all of this was, I didn't even know what were my deepest dreams.
Mm-hmm.
I would go to all of these personal growth things. I became a yoga teacher and a meditation teacher, and all of the searching that I did to try to find, how do I land in greater ease and navigate life with greater ease, left me feeling a bit like I must be really broken, because none of them really solved the problem, right?
Right.
And at the end of the day, I did all of these things, but then I was like, well, I don't know what do I really want to do? I don't even know, because I don't know where to find it.
Well, I think you hit it right there. I mean, in a couple ways, because one, it is the heart, and we're so stuck in our heads and as outward, looking for the answers out there, and when everything is in here. But the other thing I want to hit on that you said, that I know that you'll agree with too, is that desire to be of service, which is a beautiful thing, because, I
Sure.
mean, we all have it to some degree and more than others.
For,
Want to serve. That's my life's, purpose, is to be of service. But then there's that, but how exactly? And so then we make up a way. Okay, I'm going to be a nurse and a parent, which, hell, that's a big way of serving. I mean, just being a parent is, and then being a nurse is, and then you're doing both. And yet there's still that lack of fulfillment. And what I'm just going to kind of say, what you're hitting on with that looking out there, is that we forget to serve the one in here.
yes.
And we're so about everybody out there, and I have to do that. And we forget about ourselves, and the self, like capital S, not the small s, who's looking to prove something and fill something. But it's like, we already are filled, but you don't get away from the monkey mind long enough to like get away from the chatter to hear
Yeah,
what is really being asked of you.
absolutely. And and I think that what I would even add to that, Tracy, is that we, um, as much as we want to serve and are doing our thing with the best of our ability and with the skills and expertise and knowledge that we have, what I have also learned is to actually serve my best, is I actually need to live fully as me. I
Mhm.
need to put all of me out there, and that starts with me caring for me first, with
Yeah,
me having my own back. And when I live solidly as me, having my own back, my yes means yes, my no means no, I actually serve the best, and I also honor others to do the same. When I am doing me, I also reflect to others that I honor and value you doing you, so that
yeah.
your yes can be yes and your no can be no.
Mhm.
So, in many ways, the irony is, when I do me, I actually live into my purpose and serve others with the greatest honor and respect. when I come from that place.
Definitely, I wholeheartedly agree, and it's a hard lesson to learn because we all are duped, like, I know when I did my master class, like, last fall, that was for me the biggest myth buster is, like, we are all brainwashed to think, especially women, you're supposed to sacrifice,
Yeah.
if you really love your family, if they're important to you, then you sacrifice and you put them first. And I love the saying family first. I do understand that. But you know what? If you don't do you first, there's nothing of you to give except resentment. And then, just burnout, like you said, and then you're upset at yourself because then what do? We beat up ourselves that we feel that way about the ones that we love and had done all of this for them, and then this is how I feel, right? It's a horrible thing, and it is that we're not taking care of us.
Yes,
We're
absolutely.
here to take care of here first. I'm so full, and like you said, I'm taking care of me instead of us like expecting other people to read our minds. You should know what I want and what I need, right? And it's like, no, you need to give that to you. And like you said, we also live by example,
Yeah. And
and that's the greatest example.
absolutely. And I would say that making someone else responsible for my happiness
Mhm.
is totally unfair. How,
Yes.
making someone else responsible for my happiness so that I can be okay?
Mhm.
Holy, what a thing to put on somebody else. So if I have me and say, I'm going to do me, I actually really take the burden off of those people around me to say, no,
Mhm.
I own me and I am going to do for me. I'm not going to lay that expectation that you need to be such and such so that I can be okay.
But I think that's so subconscious. I mean, until you bring that into your awareness, a lot of people don't even realize that they're doing that. I mean, honestly. So, I mean, I guess that's a great segue into what the live your dream life masterclass that you're offering next week on Wednesday and Saturday. Let it be known, everybody. The link is there and in the description. So if you want to know more about these awesome nuggets
Yeah,
of wisdom that you're bestowing, like what is part of that? Like, what can people look forward to? Who is this for? Who are you? Really saying this is you. If this is you, then you need to be here.
absolutely. Thank you for that opportunity. And I'm really grateful for it. I am so passionate about having people live in this way. And I would say, the people that, most resonate are professional women who are high achievers. Maybe they're medical professionals. Right now, some of my clients are female surgeons, trauma surgeons, anesthetists, right? These are people who are like, yeah, I don't want to give this. This is beautiful. And I am not living fully as me.
Mhm.
So this is for people who are going, yes, I know that there's lots in life that I want to do yet, but I'm not sure what it is exactly because everything's too noisy. And I also feel like, how can I do that and without letting people down, I don't want to stop doing being a trauma surgeon. I want to be a trauma surgeon because that's what I love. But how do I actually live? How do I move forward? How can I still do me? And who is the me that's
Mhm.
behind all of this? We're layered with all of these layers, looking through sort of grimy glasses, trying to figure out, well, where actually do I go? And that's what I hear from my clients is they're like, oh my gosh, I'm feeling like a failure.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that is sort of the group. And the masterclass is really providing some of the tools, the real learning, some of the nuggets, the golden learnings that I have taken from both my professional world, also my own personal journey to say, here is the thing. Many of us have sought out, and all my clients are the same, have sought out multiple components of personal growth
Right.
and 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 have done lots of therapy. And some are, say, I've done therapy and I keep going back.
Yeah.
This is actually about unhooking from the nervous system, not working within the cognitive. So it's a radically different approach. But what it gives is lifelong skills. I can't ever imagine me, Tracy, going back to a therapist. And not that I think there's anything wrong.
No.
I've been to therapists and I believe they offer value. So not that I won't ever, but I have the skills. I feel like the confidence to navigate whatever life throws at me, including death, including my own death, because I have also done that work.
Right.
And so the program that I'm going to be sharing with folks in this masterclass is called Mud to Lotus. And I think it really describes well where my clients sort of feel like they are kind of in the mud, mucking about, longing to really live who they are, knowing, almost feeling an urgency sometimes. I need to live this, I need to live me. But I'm not sure how to do it because I'm still mucking about in the personal growth world and doing my work and doing my career. But finding the skills, mentoring, coaching, guiding, the skills to step into and move with some confidence, some guidance through the muck to really start to bloom, to blossom, to become the full lotus, the full being. And what we know about the lotus, which I think is so beautiful, is the lotus remains tethered in the mud.
Yeah.
We're not at war with our nervous system or our ego or our personality or life. We are going to live with life, develop the skills to live and navigate when life is spicy and hard and tough and bring you to your knees difficult. Those skills. And as we do that, what actually opens is this ease of being, the greater joy. And as we do that, more energy is available. We spend so much time resisting. We don't want to feel. When we actually include it as part of who we are, what happens is we have more energy to attend to our heart. And so ironically, meeting the very things that we have struggled to meet, the grief, the shame, the fear, the anger, all of those pieces, when we actually meet and develop the skills to keep meeting ourselves here, what opens up is energy and the awareness of, oh, this is what my heart is calling to next. And so that is what Mud to Lotus is about.
No, I love the imagery. Yeah. Especially for those who may not know that the lotus flower, it is, yes, rooted in the mud. It has to be, it looks like it's floating there on the surface, this beautiful like lily pad with this gorgeous flower there, but it had to come up from, it starts in the mud, it has to work its way through the mud, and then it's got all the way till it gets to the surface. And if you really think about it too, water is, that symbol for emotions. And I really feel that's the other thing, right? We're running away from the fear, and the fear is really not only death, but the fear of our own emotions, right?
Absolutely.
But just experiencing them, allowing them to be, and also realizing that we have a choice whether we're going to stay there or not. And I think that's something we don't get taught. We don't get taught a lot of those. I just breaking it down for you, it's like, yeah, that happened. And our minds are so, it's something that cannot be replicated. The fact that one person's mind and another's, can go through everything the same. You've seen siblings grow up in the same household, and they will definitely tell you different stories about their families and their experience growing up there. But it's like, that if we don't learn that, you can, first of all, we didn't get to pick what got put into the hard drive, but that we actually have the ability to say, you know what, I don't want that program in there anymore. That's false. That's BS. And I can replace it. But no one really tells you that, no one shows you how to do that. Even in the therapy, it's like, oh, okay, let's look at where this came from. And it's like, you know what, let's just get rid of it.
Well, and I would say even that, we don't have to even get rid of anything, but what we need to do is have a relationship with it. We need to go, that was part of my trauma.
Mhm.
Trauma is always going to part of my work is around the neuroplasticity piece of our nervous system, like the amazing ability of the body to lay down new neural pathways,
Yeah.
which really speaks to, this trauma that I had in my life will remain there as a memory. So we
Mhm.
can't get rid of it,
Yeah.
but we can go, yes, I see you. And by learning the skills to go underneath the stories that are attached with it,
Yeah.
the old beliefs, the emotions tied with it, to actually meet it, to contact it with compassion and kindness.
Mhm.
That is not what we do. We
Yeah.
are habitually under the nervous system, ego, personality parts of ourselves. And I would say that in my whole experience of medicine, I can prescribe a lot of medications to help with physical suffering, to
Mhm.
reduce pain, to help with shortness of breath. I can do all of that and have people even die very comfortably.
Mhm.
But the greatest, most difficult, heart-wrenching, heartbreaking experiences, even for healthcare professionals, is seeing the grief and the angst of regret, of
Mhm.
non-fulfillment of dreams. There
Mhm.
is no medicine for that.
No, yeah, there is no remedy for
There is
that.
not. And it is one of those bring you to your knees moments.
Mhm. Yeah.
This is what I want my work to be.
Yeah.
I want people to be able to come to end of life knowing that their end of life will have much greater ease because they've lived fully.
Mhm.
That
Yeah,
is
and the thing is that it's only here. This is all we have is this present moment. And
yes,
thank you. I mean, it's not so much, and I think you kind of said that too, but it's like, let's go back. You want to get rid of things, right? And like you said, the trauma is always going to be there. That's
yes,
fine. But we can get rid of the story that we wrapped around it that causes us to suffer because it's in knowing that we could actually rewrite that as it's not something
yes.
that makes you less or that you're damaged goods or any of that. It's like, you know
Oh,
what? Actually, you're surviving. It made you that much stronger, allows you that empathy. And as you're saying, the ability to help others say, I've been there and I've gotten through it, but I'm not going to let it define me. And I
no.
think that's the other thing. And you bringing up the neuroplasticity, and we're of that generation where they told us you have this many brain cells, they're rooted this way, and that's it. But now they're finding out that's not true either, that we can rewire ourselves. And
Absolutely.
I think that's where the empowerment lays is that, look at what you're telling yourself. And that's the big thing is awareness, self-awareness. Look at what you're telling yourself. And what you're telling yourself is usually what other people have told you. And now you have thought that as the truth because
Yes.
it might have gotten, repeated to you that often. And now you look only for that evidence. And
Yes.
yet it's no, until you have somebody else who can show you a different perspective and, just kind of move you and go, look this way at it.
Right.
Wow, it opens up this. And I think that's what you're talking about in your program of enabling people to bring that self-awareness. And then the next part is that responsibility. Now you're responsible to replace it. Cause yeah, you can't get rid of it, but we can reframe it, we can rewire it, we can make a new story around it, we can empower ourselves from it. And
Totally.
then make a new choice. Make a new choice.
Yes, and in really dissolving those stories and beliefs and things that we carry with us that tether us to what I would call the familiar suffering of life, the up
Mhm.
and down, where something external to me drives my happy, my sad, my grief, my shame, actually becomes the space in which you go, I've got one life. And
Yeah.
I am going to own it fully. What does my heart want to do next? What is next for me? That is what opens up in that space.
And I think that's beautiful because what is next for everyone out there? Sign up for this course. And I want to kind of say, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because you did, make reference to the professional women and high
Mhm.
caliber women. But I want to say, as you know too, you know what? You might be a stay-at-home mom, or you were professional at one time, and now maybe you're out of work, or you're working home, and now you're kind of going cray cray in your head because now you find yourself trying to do your job in your home with your children. They're getting homeschooled everything, you know what? This is for you too. This is for
Absolutely.
you as well when you're going, okay, I should be so grateful and I should be so thankful for where I'm at, knowing all the other stories of people out there, but there still might be that feeling. So I wanted to just say that I think you cater to that as well, to anybody
Yeah.
who's looking at.
Thank you, Tracy. That is absolutely very true. I would say the people that sort of have gravitated to me, but honestly, this is for everybody.
Yeah.
I don't care whether you're man or woman, because but the thing is these are the skills of humans.
Yeah.
I want, if I could give everybody the skill in the world to navigate life with greater ease and live in, can you imagine what our world would be like?
But we know from being in the medical profession, right? Somebody wants to get over their disease, even if it's diabetes, and you can give them all of the things that they need to do, your diet, exercise,
Yeah,
etc. It's really until that will comes from here, until enough is enough and you're tired of suffering. And unfortunately, a lot of people have to get to that place. So if you feel maybe you're already there or you don't want to go there and you see yourself going there, I'm just going to put it out there. Please, people, give yourself the opportunity. It's a free masterclass. She's got 2 dates available, one on Wednesday and on Saturday. And are you sending out just for those people who it may not just work for? Are you doing a replay just to know?
yes, yes,
Okay.
there's yep, absolutely a replay.
Okay, so no excuse, people. If
No,
this is saying anything to you, if you're having any kind of tug, any intuition, any like body sensation that's saying, "Oh, maybe I should just do it," because then
I
you
agree.
should do it. Do it. Give yourself the gift. Give
Yep,
yourself the gift.
absolutely. And I would welcome any connections if people have, heard us and after the masterclass say, oh my gosh, I really want to come back and I really want to come back and there's something in this for me. Reach out. I'm great. I love to chat with folks, and I'm great for people to reach out and ask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I was going to say that, are you allowing people, because I saw you have a community too. Would people who want, do they have to go through your class or a course, or can anybody join your community?
Absolutely.
Okay. So people in there too, clicking on her and find her for her community. Maybe I'll put that link in there as well. That if you'd like to continue this, maybe you have a feeling, but you're not sure. But again, it's a free masterclass. There's nothing to lose here,
No,
you know?
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm well spent. You'll learn something and then, yeah, maybe get into her community and feel a little bit more into it and find out if the Mud and Lotus program might be for you. And I love that. I love that name. All right, well, we have definitely had a time here. I loved it, and everything you said was just so on spot, and it spoke to my heart. I hope people out there, those who are still with us or those who've joined us, whatnot, hey, everything's in there that you need to know, and you already know it in here too, right?
Yeah.
Everything we need to know is there. So just
Absolutely. It
act
is.
on. So any closing words that you would like to leave our listeners with?
Just to say thank you, Tracy, for the opportunity to share with your community. And I would just say, like you, if there's any part of this that really calls to you, if it's just that small tug, that's your heart calling you. And if you can be courageous and listen to it, go to the masterclass or join the Facebook group. But that's your heart calling. And if that's what you can really honor, step into your courage and do that. I think it will serve you well. You'll feel the congruence with it.
Yeah, and as we both know, when you start acting on that, other doors open and things just start happening. So take
Yes.
that first step. Take that first step. Well, thank you so much, Ann, for joining us. Thank you, everyone out there who watched and who can. And please share this with other, with your community, with your followers, listeners, whatnot, family, friends, anyone that you think that this may resonate with. So thank you so much, and everyone, stay happy, healthy, positive, and enjoy the rest of your never before lived day. Cheers.
Bye.